Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, talking about how you can make money on NBA Top Shot with these flash challenges. It's fairly simple to do, honestly, if you have a big collection and if you're prepared for them. So I'll show you here some of these moments just in the last 24 hours. Today is Thursday, April 28th. If you're watching this in the future, back for reference and want to reference some of these challenges to see what I was talking about, or check out some of these players' prices and how they moved on Evaluate Market. So up right now we have Javon Carter, who is currently a bottleneck in a challenge, and basically the only way to make money off flash challenges, besides completing them and getting a challenge reward that is going to hit a pretty good serial, is by having these moments in your collection that are going to bottleneck. And if you didn't check out my bottlenecks video on the best playoff bottleneck players, I'm constantly adding to this spreadsheet. It's got players with under 100,000 moments, rares, S1, S2, debut, bottlenecks, and they can all rise in price. It doesn't matter which one you can go after, which we'll also see in this video. So if you want to get access to that, definitely join up to the channel, and I'll put a link down for that, and also click the join button if you want access to that playoff spreadsheet that I'll be updating for the bottlenecks. So for this one, let's get into how you can get some of these bottlenecks and make money with these flash challenges. So when you're looking at here, Javon Carter, $26 right now. And if we go ahead and open it up on Evaluate Market, and then also open up the challenge that he bottlenecked, which is right here, you can see out of all these players, obviously the playoff moments aren't going to be bottlenecks, and then you got Javonte Green and Grayson Allen are slight bottlenecks, and Carter and Matthews are the bigger bottlenecks. So if Carter and Matthews weren't in it, you could have seen a bump in Javonte Green and Grayson Allen moments. If you come back to the spreadsheet here, all Bucks guys we're looking at here, we're on the spreadsheet, and for the spreadsheet, I'm going to start marking these that have already hit in the playoffs so we can see which ones have hit already, and I'll be updating their mint count after their playoff moments come out as well for this. But basically all of these guys have hit except for Grayson Allen so far in a bottleneck, and then one that I just recently deleted was a slight bottleneck in Patrick Williams hit as well. But you could see if you guys had some of these players coming down to this graph, just insane here. You could have got this one for $7-8, and this one was all the way up in the 30s, now kind of settled back down to the mid 20s, but still $7-8 to mid 20s. And you might think that's not that much money, making $20 off of this. Well, you only invested $7. You could have bought 10 of them, and then you're making a pretty good amount of money. So you don't just have to buy one of these if you really believe in some of these bottlenecks that we have out here. Again, it's a risk trying to buy some of these up. You never know if they're going to hit, but already we've seen some hit pretty well. So here we have another example. This is a smaller bottleneck because Patrick Williams does have a decent amount of moments. He has about 50,000, I think. So he was in the challenge, and it just saw a small bump, but still a pretty worthy bottleneck. You could have got this one for $6, and then it went up to just above 10 slightly. So that one wasn't too exciting. One here that was exciting was Pat Connaughton. So he only had that one 12K moment that you saw on the spreadsheet, and the price of this one, because he was in two of the current challenges, went from $20 and went all the way up into the 50s. So a pretty big increase there on a $20 moment, more than double the price. And then the next one here was Wes Matthews. So on Wes Matthews, if we remove some of these outliers, you could see you could have had this one $11-12, and this went way up into hit 30 for a minute, and then we actually had, I think, Javon Carter hit as well, so it didn't bottleneck as hard. But if you sold it at the peak, you could have made $11-12 into about high 20s. So definitely some viable options already in the playoff bottleneck spreadsheet. So hopefully you guys were checking that out and scooping up some of those moments for the low when you could, and selling them at the high. Unless you're thinking about completing these challenges, then you already have it for cheap. So kind of works both ways there. And if you notice on the spreadsheet, we do have rares that are bottleneck under 1,000. So one that actually did hit as well was that Pat Connaughton rare. So if we come check out the rare for the Hero Ball challenge, let's open up Connaughton's rare. So he only has 1 out of 749. And if we're looking at this one, could have had it around here for about 130, below 130, and then it kind of peaked up here 160. So it's definitely viable for some of these rares to bottleneck as well if you can get them for min count under 1,000 that are going to be in the challenges. But definitely viable some of these other ones if they do S1 only, S2 only, Top Shot debuts only. We got it all covered here on the spreadsheet. And the next question may be, what players can you buy for the cheap right now that could be good? So one is Paul Reed. Hasn't gotten too many minutes. Usually his is just $7 here, but like we saw in the 3-point flash challenge, those ones are easier to hit for kind of role players that maybe will get in at the end of the game when it's a blowout and hit 3 or 4 threes in the game, or like a steals or a block challenge, or bench points challenge is another one. So some of these guys, if you catch wind of a challenge like that, it could be worth scooping up some cheap guys or just already having them in your collection for when that does happen. So Paul Reed is one. Another one that I talked about a lot is Dwayne Dedmon here for the Heat. That's his only moment as well. So some of these are pretty cheap and they could really blow up like we saw with those first Bucks moments if they hit one of these challenges. So you're definitely going to be wanting to look out for players that are on the cheap and are still bottlenecks within that list. And then we see, so then the next way, if you can be on top of the announcements in the Discord for Top Shot, the challenge announcements when they release what they actually are, you can go ahead and buy them for the cheap, anticipating that they're going to be in it. So when we saw it was a 3-point challenge, you could have went up and scooped up Gabe Vincent, his only moment from the Miami Heat. And if we check out his moment, what happened, he ended up not actually being in the challenge, I believe, but just on the anticipation of him being in the challenge, you could see how high his moments rose. So before he was like $13, $12, and then just on the announcement of the 3-point challenge being part of it, this one went up to $20. So if you want a really quick flip with no risk, you could buy it right when it's announced and then just flip it for some profit. Or I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure he wasn't actually in the challenge, but this one went way up just on the anticipation of him maybe being in the challenge, unless I'm mistaken on that. But I know it definitely rose before it was confirmed he was in the challenge, and not sure he actually got in it. So that's another way to flip, is before, just on the anticipation of them and getting in. As soon as they announce it, you can buy some of these up. So for example, I don't think they're having a challenge today. They haven't announced it, but if they do, and if it's like blocks or steals, I would come look for 76ers bottlenecks. One is Paul Reed, who we already looked at, and target them. Or maybe for the Raptors, could be Scotty Barnes for assists or even points or rebounds, who doesn't have many moments. So can get in there and get early when they announce a challenge like that. And especially if it's like a role player who's not going to get too many minutes, definitely possible for them to pick up 2 or 3 steals or blocks or 3-pointers if that's what the challenge is in limited minutes. It's a lot easier to do that than getting a bunch of total assists, rebounds, or points. So when the challenges are those kind of more subcategories, it does make more sense to target some of these role players that are really cheap and are pretty big bottlenecks in some of these challenges that are going to be upcoming during the playoffs. All right, guys, and then lastly, before I close this one out, they do have that Jalen Suggs challenge live right now, just for buying any Jalen Suggs moment, or you can actually just email their sweepstakes with a form. So definitely check that out in the terms and conditions to get a entry into the contest. It's a viable option, so definitely make sure to check that one out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the playoff bottleneck spreadsheet and like the video, and I'll see you guys in another one.